This is where business ideas and passions turn into profit. Whether you're dreaming of becoming your own boss, but don't know how to get started, or have already started a side hustle and wish to grow it exponentially, your host, Victoria Wieck, can help you turn your passion-based business ideas into profit. Welcome to Million Dollar Passion. Here is your host, world-renowned jewelry designer and home shopping TV celebrity, Victoria Wieck.
Welcome to another episode of the Million Dollar Passion Podcast. Every week, I try to bring you some relevant content to your life as entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs. And no matter what stage entrepreneurship you're at, I think today's show is going to really be inspiring, but in a way that's very realistic, because a lot of times people who are into that inspiring, encouraging, they're eternal optimists and they don't really see the realistic side of things. And when you actually get hit with reality, you're just wondering what happened to me. So it's a fact. It's a known fact that the failure rate of small businesses is somewhere north of 75%, 75%, 90% in the first 5 years. And even if you make beyond the 5 years, there's still, a 50% failure rate between 5 to 10 years. So why is it? There are, two known facts that we know of. First one is, lack of customers. Second one is lack of funding. Third one is lack of visibility. And the fourth one is the one that we're going to talk about today. It has a lot to do with your entrepreneurship mindset. That it's also a known fact that most entrepreneurs just kind of suffer from, the lack of resilience and the persistence, because they kind of give up the first time, something major happens to their business. And, they kind of like give up on their life dream, and all of the dreams you had about helping other people, amplifying your mission, improving other people's lives just come to a halt. So today I have somebody who can talk about this from not a theoretical view, but he's actually experienced this in his own life. And I'm going to just tell you that you're going to be fascinated with this. So his name is Arnaud Henneville-Wedholm. I know it's a mouthful, so we're just going to call him Arnaud. So Arnaud, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Victoria. Thanks a lot for welcoming me on your show. Super.
Yeah. So tell me, so you're calling in from Sweden, right, today?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, that's great. So tell my audience a little bit about your entrepreneurship journey and some of the times when you didn't succeed, and just a little bit about that. And then we'll dive into, about why you wrote the book, and a book called How Hard Could It Be? That's a great title, by the way. I love it. So,
thank you.
Yeah, tell us a little bit.
Yeah, well, a little bit. Kind of always been in entrepreneurial setting. I've always, done things and tried to achieve things on my own, and really always had from a young age, this ambition of, creating something for myself. So I've always, created some small business, always even younger. But what I had, I think, over everything else is this, a grit and this mindset of consistently, systematically going into the hustle. Really fighting my way through and making it happen. And so, yeah, I've set up a few businesses even before doing a real job, so to say. But eventually, I graduated with an MBA from the UK, and eventually started working as a management consultant in a large consultancy firm doing change management. So we're doing behavioral change, so helping large organizations to cascade strategic initiatives within the organization. So helping leaders to develop capacity and skills to execute on important corporate strategies for large corporations, Coca-Cola, AT&T. Really big monsters that are complex to maneuver. But eventually, after 5 years or so of doing that, a colleague and I decided to go on our own and try our luck into challenging Facebook, actually.
Okay, so basically, you've always had the entrepreneurial spirit in you, and
Correct.
you've always wanted to find your own path to success. And obviously, they didn't. Most of them didn't succeed at that point because you decided to go to a corporate world where you did the corporate management, and you learned there how the large corporations learn how to execute and, like lay out their strategies, execution, and scale and use basically optimize their total resources.
Right.
So now I guess, what were the lessons that you learned, comparing the small businesses that you failed at versus the large scale corporations that actually were doing, something right, a few things right? What were the lessons that you learned from that?
Well, in those big systems, I mean, it's very hard to feel that you actually make a difference yourself, right? It's like the sum of all the people that actually make it happen. So it's all about the team, and it's all about everything that comes to support the team to execute. So it's easier, I would say, than doing it on your own and really trusting yourself and having all that resilience and all that drive to change the world. And I think that's what us small entrepreneurs, everyday entrepreneurs have to have, and in order to make something of substance, try to dent the universe. So the difference, I've seen it right off when I tried my different ventures prior to working in large corp, and afterwards, as we were just saying, when we decided to go against Facebook, to challenge Facebook. So really, what happened? So I was working there. This is like 2010, and Facebook is starting to pick up speed and traction. It's like a 6 years old business. They have like 800,000 users. And everyone is starting talking about, what's going on with Facebook, and what's the relation with a social network and depression. And you start, having a lot of research around the effect of playing with a like button onto teens. So a lot of that is happening. And at the same time, we as management consultant cannot really understand why would so many people be so excited by pressing a like button and, doing it from their sofas and not really engaging into the real world. So from a behavioral perspective, it was a bit odd to us. And we thought that we could create a social network that would, bring back people into the real world, like taking them out of their couch and, pushing them into doing things for real. So what we found is the way to do that, the mechanism was a challenge. So our network was based on a very simple thing, which is that forever, people have been driven by, self-actualization. It's all about what you have to do to reach the higher level of the Maslow pyramid. So we've, since the beginning of ages, trying to get out of the cave and, slowly but surely move away from the fire camp and becoming greater versions of ourselves, discovering new lands, coming up with technologies. And that's what we do as humans. And we thought that this idea of bringing back people into the world by doing things that they actually wanted to do as per this idea of self-actualizing made a lot of sense. So hence the challenge idea.
Okay, so obviously when you try to take on something, as it's like a real story of David and Goliath, right? So you try to take on something as big as that, and you don't have funds, and you don't really have the systems built in, and they, at that point, Facebook was rapidly, getting investors, and they were rapidly pretty much like putting on almost impossible barriers to entry for most people. But most of our entrepreneurs here are not at that point. So let's get back on point, which is, how hard could it be? Your title of the book is very appropriate. We are now living in the era of the Great Resignation, where something like 3 to 4 million Americans, usually they're actually a significant percentage of the people who are quitting their jobs, the 3 to 4 million people quitting their jobs every single month are younger. They're millennials they're at the height of what they should be, doing in terms of building their careers, building their financial resources for the future. They're actually quitting their jobs. And like I said, that 3 to 4 million people per month is kind of alarming. So all the research lately, and we're talking like, real extensive research by UPS, Vistaprint, Forbes, the Census Bureau, these are very big research. They have shown that 63% of Americans want to do their own thing.
Right.
And of the people that quit their jobs, about 30% of them have already started a side hustle. And the other, 70% of those people want to start something, but they don't know how to get started. So tell us, how hard could it actually be? So tell us in point by point, just maybe 3 points, a couple of minutes each about how hard could it be and why is it so hard?
Right. Yeah. So it's rough. And so that's the starting point. I mean, it's really rough. We went through the statistics. The reason for the title of the book is that how hard can it be is really the question we ask as entrepreneur when we go into something like, okay, how hard can it be to displace Facebook, which is what we went after. But in truth, it is harder than you think it will be. And the reason is, well, you're going to...
In what way? In what way, you think?
What way it is harder?
Is it funding or getting customers, or is it, balancing time, or in what way do you think it's hard?
In all the ways. I mean, everything is hard on that journey. I mean, from the very day. I mean, unless you have like the brilliant idea that you are going to go after. I mean, first it's about coming up with the idea, right? So. If the side hustle is kind of something else because you can try to do something on the side, but I really believe in going all in because otherwise, if you are half as committed, well, you get half of the results, right? So I'm really into committing yourself to something that you are passionate about, or at least you believe that you are passionate about, and that's a big one because people tend to think that. Okay, I'll find my passion first, and then I'll go after it. And I think that's backwards. Everyone is passionate about something. I mean, whether it's a hobby or something that you really can feel inside you that this is for you. I mean, for you, it was jewelry. For other people, it's other things, sports or diet or whatnot. But so that passion somehow will change as you move along, right? As you go forward. So it's totally okay for me, I think, to really start with something that you believe in today and, put all into that venture, all your sweat and commitment and ideas and vision and, dedication, and see how far you can go. Because if you don't, you'll turn around and perhaps, most likely regret not having pushed, and you won't push the second time once you've given up. So the first thing is really go into the one thing that you believe. Then throughout the journey, I mean, that's the journey of entrepreneurship. It's up and down. It's the valleys and it's the deeps. And it's really hard because getting customer is obviously hard. Lending finance is very hard. You don't, lend a couple of millions overnight. Getting traction is super hard. So throughout that journey, you will experience hardship. It will be complicated, but nevertheless, you have to keep going, which is why passion helps initially, right?
Yeah, I think, it's really interesting because in my own journey, I did what you said, which was to go all in. So at the time I started my company, I had a colleague, I have a very good friend who, came in, I started a jewelry company. And this colleague, so I didn't have any money. I didn't have anybody who was a jeweler in my family. I didn't have anybody who was a business person in my family. My father was like a professor and, when he came to America, he couldn't teach because he didn't speak English. But I had a colleague who had a really, well-paying job, and he didn't want to go all in because he thought he could do his as a side hustle because he was already in the related business. He had family connections and he had some money. So he started, and there was quite a few people actually that started their companies right around the same time. I was the only one that actually quit the job, and I didn't have family backing. I didn't have money. And yet I was the only one that succeeded after 3 years. And then after 10 years, there was a huge divide. So some people, can't afford to start it as I believe the reason why those people didn't succeed is because when they have a job, when they're going to work during the day, they're making, $100,000, $150,000, $200,000. Right. They're giving their best hours, basically, from about 7 a.m. to, 6 p.m. to that company. You're coming home exhausted. Totally. And, you're dealing with your family, you got a kid, and you want to be a great parent, you want to be a great, spouse. So your business always takes a second priority. So unless you have a really, really strong business idea, there is a very little chance that will succeed. Now, the other thing you can do is you can start it as a side hustle only as a testing ground, and then you're going to have to eventually transition into, a business that could sustain or that could grow and scale. So first thing, you talked about an idea, and the idea, and I teach and I give, like those of you who are listening right now, you can sign up for a lot of my freebie classes. I talk about, without passion, you really don't have a business, because when things get rough and you hit a month where you got no revenue, or you hit a month where, you find out that the stuff that you just, shipped out and had a defect and you have to recall. There's just all kinds of crazy things that could happen. Sure. And, when a small business recalls, it could be 50 pieces, but it's everything you have. Mm-hmm. So when that happens, if you are so passionate and this is what you live and breathe and live for, it's easier to stomach those hours. It's easier to stomach those lumps and say, I'm so passionate about it. I don't know what happened, but I'm going to fix this. Rather than if you were just in there for money, you're like, this isn't making me any money right now, so I'm going to quit. So I think that doing what you're passionate about in those times, it really helps you stay consistent and be a little bit more resilient. And even for me, like even those times when, I thought my business was going to be done with it, over with, because as your business grows, the stakes are higher. So one mistake can actually, get you down. I was able to sit back and say, you know what, even though I may lose everything tomorrow, the sun will rise. And I really enjoyed all that time that I've had with this business. And if I had to do it over again, I would do it again. And in those times when stakes were really high and I could go under, or I could, compromise, I doubled down and then I grew. So I think that what you're preaching is, really something that I've experienced myself also. So how hard could it be? So all those facets, it's really hard. How would you say then, what are the tips that you could offer in terms of when things get, in your book, How Hard Could It Be? You talk about all the things that could go wrong and how hard it is. So, what you're trying to do is you're trying to basically let people know that, entrepreneurship, when you look at all the, people who made millions of dollars, like, Bezos, Richard Branson, Elon Musk, all those people, they're kind of like entrepreneurship unicorns, right? They're very rare. And, most people don't know exactly if they're real, because exactly. Yeah. You look at their stories, they are actually laden with failures. They're in their beginning years. It was not, look at Bezos, it was like 15 years. We all listened to his earnings call on CNBC talking about why he didn't make his numbers, why his losses were actually bigger than the last month, but he continued on, like everybody thought he was crazy. Same thing with Elon Musk. If you read his book, books about Elon Musk, it was like 5-10 years. People thought he was a joke in Silicon Valley. Yeah. They just thought, this guy for real. So is there any, are there any tips that you have in your book that you can share that kind of helps them, this is reality, but what are the things you could do to actually then succeed in that environment? Because it's like a jungle out there, when it comes to entrepreneurship right now.
Yeah, no, you raised quite a few important points. I mean, first of all, most will fail. I mean, as you say, 90%. It's you when you look around and you look for tips and for advices. I mean, and for content that could support you. The stories that are relayed aren't really relatable, because, as you mentioned, there are stories. If there are stories about failure, right? If there are stories that you can actually learn from, because you won't learn anything from the massive successes of an Elon Musk. So the stories that you can learn from are actually stories of failure, because you learn from the mistakes of others, right? So I opened my book with a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, which is, you should leverage, you should really use the learnings from the failure of others, because you can't possibly long enough to make them all yourself, and you can't. And that's really the purpose of the book, is to show that here are some tips that you can really learn from to help you achieve that success you're after. So yeah, that would be essential. I lost a bit track of the question there.
Well, what are the tips that you can offer to the small entrepreneurs to succeed in the environment where you're going to be faced with failure after failure after failure? Yeah. To expand upon your point that you learn more from your failures than you do from success stories. For example, my kids played competitive tennis. They were both nationally ranked. They played college tennis. And, as a tennis mom, and don't judge me by that because I'm not a wacko tennis mom at all, but, I watch my kids play, and, sometimes they get lucky with the draw, and they'll get like somebody who's ranked 185 or something in the nation. But sometimes they'll get the number one draw opening round, and it'd be like, oh, great. Like this guy's going to go, he's got to be the next Roger Federer. And I'm, sitting here, hitting balls out over here. Like, what's my luck? Right. What I watch them when they really excelled in their tennis game is not when they won those easy draws, but when they lose those close games, like where it came down to the last 6 points. And they keep thinking about, I should have come in earlier. I should have, hit a volley. I shouldn't have hit a backhand. Like they really think about their strategy, and that's when you grow. So I think that these, painful, what I like to say is that with every challenge, every obstacle in your entrepreneurship journey, there is a gift that's wrapped in there. You do need to, I always teach people how to actually not only embrace failure, but plan your failure. So like when you're launching a business, I always ask people to launch your good, better, best, because when you launch 3-tiered, of the same product, something's not going to work because people are not going to buy the good, better, and best. They're going to buy one of those 3 things. And so the other 2 by nature will fail. Yeah. So, understanding failure is a key ingredient
to success.
Yes.
And we all fail our way to success, right?
Right.
And as you say,
fall forward, get up and fall forward.
Right. Yeah, I actually go beyond the embrace failure. I think the strategy is really get uncomfortable on purpose, like by design.
Right. Yeah.
And that touch a bit upon the point you made earlier, like when you are working full time and you come home and you decide that you don't have the time and you don't have the energy because obviously you've been tied up with other things. You are too comfortable in a way, right?
Right.
Because the moment you remove that income, I mean, you obviously completely committed to the thing you are going after.
Right.
And so when you do the journey yourself and you are going through those deeps and the difficulties and the struggle of landing a customer or, not having enough inventory or whatever business you may be in, on design, putting yourself into difficult situation will help you be comfortable with potentially failure along the way, and you will, and you can totally put that into the context of sport, like you just did. Yeah. And I personally do that every time I go running or every time I go to the gym. You don't grow muscles by lifting the same weight over and over. You grow muscle because you break the muscle fiber and then you build on top, right? So you have to lift heavier and heavier in order to get growth. It's the same mechanism. The same for running. And it's interesting because in running, I don't know if you run, but I run quite a lot. And it's always the same pain. So regardless of how many times you go running at 10K, 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers, you will find the exact same struggle. It won't get easier.
Right.
You know, it's just everything
is the
same.
harder, the bigger the dollar. So, you know, when you grow your business, you're going to actually, I think you raised a really good point here, which is when you're starting your business and, you know, you're trying to make the first 50,000, it's very painful. I've been there. Trust me, it's very painful and it's a lot of work. And you wonder every single day, oh my God, like, am I ever going to get a break? Or this was a stupid idea. You know, why did I think I was going to succeed in this? And there's a lot of people that are smarter than me, that have more money than me. They didn't, you know, succeed. So what the heck was I thinking?
Right.
You know, I had I lived in LA at the time. I had a LA Times like employment board, like next to me the whole time, circled in red, thinking like I should just start to get a backup job, you know? And, but I still pushed on. And so the first 50,000, you know, it's pretty painful. Then you get a little bit of money, you know, things kind of nice. And, you know, I did the first 300,000. I'm like, this is great. Like, it's wonderful. You know, I'm going to go buy some furniture because I finally have some money to buy, you know, I was living in a 2-bedroom rented apartment. So I thought to myself, I can get myself like a little desk. And so at that point, you know, I realized every order I shipped, you know, there was, if anything, because your margin isn't that huge. So if anything goes wrong with any of those things, that could just kind of, you know, wipe my total profit. So the stresses are different. So, you know, and then you have to invest money. Like, you have to have you know, somebody to help you. I hired help and all that. So now growing pains of that, at that point, I'm like, I now have an office. I have a couple of employees. I now have to do $300,000 a month to sustain myself. How am I going to do that? So it's the same pain, but now it's much bigger. But the good news is, though, you went through that pain, you understood, you know, you have some skills to, you know, get a response rate, you know, what's working, you know, what direct mail this way doesn't work. And, you know, like phone calls worked better for me. So, you know, and then when I went from 300,000 to the first million, and that was within the first 18 months, you know, I was able to, my conversion rate went from like 10% from direct mail to, by the time I was doing $1 million, my conversion rate was, you know, about 40%. So you learned how to tweak up to that point. Right. So, you know, I think that I love what you're doing. I love, you know, I'm going to tell you, ladies and gentlemen who are listening, because, you know, a lot of my listeners are female entrepreneurs. I always say, I'm very honest, I'm very upfront. And I always tell people, like when I coach and when I do free webinars, in fact, I did one 2 days ago and you know, and it was a high quality, like a mastermind class. And I told everybody, don't sign up for any of my classes. If you think all you have to do is sign up for this class and, you know, and listen to me for, you know, weekly Zoom, because it's not rosy. It's not easy. You are going to have to do a lot of work. You know, it's the only way you're going to get there. And it is a lot of work, but you know what, Arnaud, I find it a lot of fun. I really do. Like, I wake up every morning after 35 years, you know, in business, $500 to $750 million in sales. You know, I've got plenty of money. I'm not saying I'm Oprah or anything like that, but remember, I started my company wanting to make $2,000 a month. And as an entrepreneur, you never know when a rainy day is going to come, when a rainy year, when a rainy decade will come. So I never learned to like be extravagant in any way. I never learned to be like braggadocious and be like, you know, I just always stayed humble. I always try to pay back and pay forward. And I really live. I mean, I drive a Yukon. I don't drive any like fancy cars or anything. So, you know, I got plenty of money for the lifestyle that I live. So, you know, but still, like I find it every morning, like this morning, I got up at, you know, I actually was on a live radio show at 6 o'clock in the morning because it was like 9 o'clock East Coast time. I was just like so excited to share my vision, because one of my favorite quotes of all time, it's not a quote, but it's a line from a song, Whitney Houston song, Destiny. And there was a line that says, my finest day is yet unknown. So for me, like, I look for I'm an eternal optimist, and I look for my finest day, which could be tomorrow. It could be, but it's in the future. It's not in the past. So
exactly.
Yeah. So for all of you who are listening, who want to, if you're one of the 3 to 4 million Americans who quit their jobs in the last, 6 months, I mean, it's probably about 20 million or so by now. And I'm hearing that trend is only going to continue more. I still encourage you to start your businesses, to find your passion and purpose in life, and, live your life with gratitude and intention. And when you do, you can directly impact the world, directly impact you, your family, your community, your world, to make it better, make it healthier, make it happier. And you can actually heal the planet this way, rather than working for some, horrible boss who is going to tell you what you're worth, or that's in the best case scenario. In the worst case scenario, they tell you you're not worth anything, or that you're only worth something if you do it my way. A lot of these corporations are just into profits. They're not into helping people. Yeah. And the other thing I would say too is, this is from my heart, is, everything, I think if you really get down to this, everything you need to succeed in life and be happy, you had it the day you were born. You had it the day you were born. And don't let anybody, any expert, anybody tell you that, you can't do this or you can't do that. Just tune it all out. If you really believe in something, it's just a matter of how am I going to get there, and how am I going to get my message out? And I know it's hard. It's getting visibility, getting traction is hard. And I have a whole, you can come to my website. I actually do a whole webinar on just that one thing. Getting visibility and getting traction in the first 2 years. But and again, that's not going to be easy either. I give you a lot of things you can do to get there, but you got to do them. It's like I have a home gym here. Uh-huh. And my husband says, so we just bought a whole new SoulCycle bike. It was like $2,500. I don't know how much it was, but we already had an elliptical, a treadmill, a Nordic track, and I have all the weights here. Plus we got a boxing thing, he says to me, we're going to buy I said, you know what? We already have an entire gym here. And the problem with that is, you don't lose weight. You don't get in shape by looking at those. Okay. Those machines actually have to be used.
You have to use them. Exactly.
So if you just use the ones you already have, we have the bike and all this stuff. So we already had a gym model bike, life cycle and all that. Okay. Uh-huh. And then, so we just got the SoulCycle, and I said, you got to get on it and start using it. I mean, any one of them will be fine. So, start with one of them, and he's not super heavy or anything, but he's just getting a little, annoyed, that, cause his birthday is coming up. But this is the same thing. Like, when you go to these mastermind classes, or you attend free webinars and they give you tips, you got to use those tips and they're simple tips. So I love the book you wrote, How Hard Could It Be? Because nobody actually is talking about how hard, realistically speaking, from an entrepreneurship point of view. But what I want to say to everyone is it is normal to be hard. You don't learn how to ski, or you don't learn how to cook, or you don't learn how to do anything great by doing things that are super easy. You look at, slalom. I can ski, but I'm not a big, professional skier or anything like that. But when I see my kids ski, or, even professionals, they fall all the time. Watch the Olympics. How many people break their leg and they fall, but they get right back on, and, they're better, apparently with pins and stuff in their knees, they're still better because they fell. Because they continue.
Exactly. We have that when we're born and we start to walk, and we stumble and we fall, and we don't stop, right? Otherwise we would all be crawling, and we don't. We all walk. So but somehow it's interesting. Somehow I think it's around the teenage ages where everything becomes about conformism. So you have to conform to that very box in which you're going to exist for the rest of your life. You're going to have grades and you're going to be graded on those. And if you do below the average, apparently you will fail. And then we start stigmatize failure. And the less we fail and the less we try, the more we supposedly fail in the eyes of society. So slowly but surely, we become very rigid in our ways of looking at the world, where in fact we are meant to try stuff, to experience things. And the only way to move forward is actually try so much stuff out there and fail at them and recognize which one actually work for you. And we all feel it. I mean, you made that very interesting point. Like, we have it from day one, from our birth. I mean, the very fact that you are on this earth, I mean, the probabilities are crazy, is 1 to 400 trillion. Yeah. And if you are on this earth, it's probably for a good reason. And so we are being, falsely directed to do things that we don't fully engage in because it doesn't resonate with us. And it makes us miserable. And at the same time, we look at others who are, again, supposedly successful. We put them on a pedestal and we look at them as, those great people that are different than us. They have something that we don't have. But it turns out we all have it. We are all the next great thing,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's just a matter of tuning to it.
Think about this, Arnaud. Like, when you look at the companies that are now controlling our lives, or those people who let them control. You're looking at Google, Apple, Amazon. Okay, all these companies, Microsoft. Okay, they all started
Netflix in some ways, right?
Well, those four, I can tell you, they all started by guys. Well, except Bezos. Everybody else started their companies, college dropouts, with less than $5,000 in total revenue. And if you look at, like, if you watch the Steve Jobs movie, you watched, you know anything about Amazon, they failed for the first 10 years.
Right.
And Steve Jobs was actually even voted out of his own board. He was fired, and he still came back and, still created the iPod. So again, I think the resilience factor is a very big thing, believing in yourself. But, the thing is, like, I'm not here to tell everybody, like, as long as you got a passion, you're going to succeed. I mean, you really have to work hard, and you got to work hard consistently. And when you're faced with difficulties, whether that's money, getting new clients or whatever. But you raise a really good point, which is, I think it's true, because I came from Korea. It's true here, much more so here in America, that when you go to school, your teachers, the society, your community leaders, everybody tells you they have their own definition of success. Right. So if you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, you're this or you're that, you're successful. I mean, I'm a creative person, and I always were told, I went to MBA school. I got great grades in my MBA school, but, and this is a true story. I didn't want to go to MBA school. I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be Van Gogh. And I'm actually a pretty good, painter. So that's all I wanted to do. And my parents said, I'm talking to so-and-so and so-and-so, they're immigrants here. You got to be a doctor. You got to be a lawyer. You got to be this and that. I didn't want to be that. Now, in my family, I have 4 doctors and a lawyer. I didn't want to be that. So, but they made me go to, MBA school. I did it. And I went to MBA school, and I thought, I can maybe my parents were right, because I can do this marketing thing. That's a creative thing, advertising, I create ads, I can create ad slogans, I can deal with that. Then my professor at, this university, USC, told me, he pulled me aside. He really, liked me, and he cared about me, and, he gave me extra work and everything. And then he told me, you know what, Wieck, you're just never going to be good at marketing. You need to you need to switch your major, because you don't understand the nuances of the language. You don't understand the nuances of marketing. You have to understand the psychology, like in the American people think differently, all this stuff. So I went on and got my degree in finance, which I had no interest in it. Creative people don't think about money, No. So I went out and got that. Well, $500 million later, primarily marketing, which I was actually pretty good at. So had I listened to him and given up my hope then and became a banker, I would have been fired the first job because I can't actually, deal with numbers at all. I mean, numbers bore me to death. So I have a degree, but so I think that, when you are in your most impressionable years in your life, about seventh grade on, you're being told what you're good at. You're going to be told pretty much what you're going to succeed in. And these are teachers that's never actually gone out and, lived the real life out there,
exactly.
Entrepreneur life. So I think that, we were all given what we need, exactly what we need from the minute we were born. And the word success, if you look at, the personal lives of some of these people, like, the movie, like Steve Jobs, I mean, he was an adopted kid. He abandoned his own child, just on and on. So when we talk about success, I talk about your quality of your life more than the digits you have in your bank. So, if you're going to go after that, I would highly recommend that you pick up this book, How Hard Could It Be? Now, many of you know, I'm an avid reader. I read about 30 to 40 books a year, every year. I'm a very curious person. And, growing up in Korea, I didn't really see much of the world. I mean, not Korea necessarily, but I lived on a small island in Korea. So that's how I saw the world and that's how I learned. And so I still have this love for books. And I don't normally recommend a lot of books for my people to read because, books take a lot of time. You're asking people to kind of invest time in you. But I think this book is really one that every entrepreneur should read because you are going to face times when you just want to give up and say, it's not worth it. So at that time, you're going to be given some tools to cope with that. So thank you so much for coming in today and sharing your time with me and my audience. And if you want to pick up the book or know more about the book or about Arnaud and his journey, which is fascinating, we didn't go through all of that because
we didn't. Yeah, that would be another podcast.
Yes, you could go to howhardcoulditbe.thebook.com. So howhardcoulditbe.thebook.com. And I will put all this in my show notes. And again, thank you so much for coming. And if you have not subscribed, please go ahead and, share and subscribe. And more than anything, just go ahead and give me a review. I'm not asking anybody to give me a great review. I'm just asking you to give me some honest feedback on every episode, because that's how I grow. And it's okay to not give me a 5-star review. I'm okay with that. Being in a creative world, I get a lot of real honest feedback, and that's what we thrive on. And so until next time, please stay healthy and happy, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Victoria. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to $1 Million Passion, where we turn dreams into reality and passion into profit. According to ancient Chinese proverb, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Congratulations on taking that first step today. For more information on how Victoria can help you turn your business idea into $1 million and to download Victoria's free ebook on passion-based business ideas, visit milliondollarpassion.com. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast player.